want to attach it?
However you want. I was just gonna walk.
Okay. Let's see. How do I know if Mel can hear us? You can hear me. Okay. So you're looking at Mel de Winter up in southern Alberta, VE6CU. And for a long time, I wanted to bring on for us a ham radio operator from Canada. Now, you might think ham radio is ham radio, but there are some things that are different, and Mel's going to present them out tonight. So, just to give you a little background, I've known him for, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 years. Does that sound right, Mel?
Probably about 15 or so years,
Yeah, 15 years. And Mel up in Canada is responsible for a big VHF and HF net too.
Not so much HF, but VHF.
Yeah, big VHF net. Let me just go down here. I won't give it all to you. When I first got to know Mel and looked on his web page, there he was standing clear up on a wind generator, just smiling. And so he's put together, been involved in 4 different wind farms. And he's done strip mining. He's done underground mining. He was in England 2 years as a missionary for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Let's see, this is interesting. He says, I became interested in amateur radio at the age of 17, but never got into the hobby till about 1982. I was on the air with HF for over a decade before the local amateurs suggested I become legal by getting certified, getting a license. So anyway, he is an honest guy, though, and he's been very involved in IT. Just he's a all-around knowledgeable guy. So Mel, we'll turn it over to you. And do you want people to kind of put up their hands when they have a question, or do you want to wait till the end to take questions?
No, whatever they prefer, no problem.
Where can we watch on Zoom?
It's on YouTube.
It's on YouTube?
Yeah.
Girls want to-
Okay, so we've got some people will be watching you on Zoom or YouTube, Mel. So Mel, take it away. Everybody, give him a big hand.
Thank you very much. Yeah, as Colin said, I got exposed to amateur radio because my father-in-law gave me a whole Kenwood 820, and I was on the air for many years with that. And on HF, and back in the day before internet was real popular, it started to track who had a license and who didn't. So I enjoyed people have to get a license. And we could get commercial licenses, but that's an annual fee. A lot of people don't have an interest in getting an amateur radio license. So that's been a bit of a challenge, and when people do get a license up here, sometimes they simply want to push the talk, release the listen, and move on. And other people say, well, I want to get into digital and stuff like that. So a lot of the time we do VHF digital work using FLDigi as a software package, and we can transmit fairly high volume of data in a very short period of time. It's been very useful for a number of incidents in the northern country where we've had fires or floods where towns have been threatened, and there's been evacuations. We've been using UHF and VHF radios, and we get Red Cross coming in from all over the country. And I'm sure you never run into this situation, but some people don't have a radio voice. Some people talk like they have a mouthful of marbles, and it can be hard to understand them. Well, we have another complexity that we run into because a lot of our support agencies use people from Quebec. So they're French Canadian. And a lot of the Westerners do not speak French. And then you mix the accent and the language issues, understanding and the meaning of the language between somebody that speaks poor English and somebody that speaks no French, and communication breakdown is inevitable. So between some of the deployment sites that we had emergency centers that deployed various types of materials, whether it was cots and blankets and so forth, supplies, food as well, out to evacuation centers. And digital became extremely useful between the sites because if you get a person with a thick French accent on one end of the radio and somebody speaking only English on the other end, it became extremely difficult. So in those circumstances, digital communication became super efficient because whatever you send was received, and we had forms. You could build custom forms and use them for whatever you wanted. So, and we did. We had some custom forms for unique circumstances and things like that. So we used FLDigi for those kinds of things. Initially, the Red Cross was going to do everything via cell phone. They lost some of the cell phone towers because of the fires. People didn't have enough battery on their cell phone to last. It ended up that amateur radio was very, very useful in some of those circumstances. So that being said, I've focused a great deal of my effort and time on VHF. However, on some of these remote locations, we did have HF stations recommunicating critical information back to Edmonton, which is the capital of Alberta, and the center of the Emergency Operations Center for the province. So people that were actually monitoring the circumstances throughout the province were being kept appraised of information via HF radio. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of what I've done and worked with in VHF and HF. I also provide links between southern Alberta and northern Alberta with Echolink for people that want to participate in communications down here when we run nets. So I've got a dedicated radio and laptop set up on VHF to the repeater, and they can participate from their laptop at home or a cell phone wherever they are, and we can link them into our nets down here. It becomes a little bit interesting sometimes because all my radio equipment sits on a single desk that's about 4.5 feet wide, and you get too much RF going on in the shack and interesting things happen sometimes. But I run Echolink and 2 VHF radios, one for me to talk on and then the other one interfaced to the laptop to run Echolink on. That being said, I also have a Kenwood TS2000 all band, all mode radio, so I can monitor VHF and HF on the same radio at the same time. It takes some getting used to, because if you put headphones on, you have HF coming in one ear and VHF coming into the other ear, and your eyes kind of go cross sometimes if people talk at the same time. But it's a very useful radio for doing multiple things at one time. As I get older, I'm sure I'm going to find that more difficult as well. So at this point in time, I enjoy it, and I'll make it last as long as I can. Some of the other things that I've done, and Colin alluded to, that you might be interested in, is part of my career. When I moved down to southern Alberta, I built 4 different wind farms and operated and managed about 7 or 8 altogether, other wind farms. But through warranty period and so forth, hiring technicians and whatnot to operate them, about 5 wind farms through the warranty period. And I continually worked my way out of a job, because when owners take their wind farms over, they hire the workers, not the managers. So I continually moved from contract to contract and built another wind farm, or went on to manage other wind farms that were under contract. And I know you have wind farms down in your region in that area. I think, there's many different brands of wind turbines. They're all interesting. They all have their advantages and disadvantages. Some claim to be the best, and other ones will beg to differ. I've seen pretty much the whole scheme of them, and I have my own preferences. Then we come down to emergency power, and if you're looking at wind, usually the commercial wind turbines, if there's a grid outage, they do not produce power and put onto the grid. They just pitch out, and they sit and wait until there's a grid reference to produce power and inject power into the grid. Wind turbines, there's a lot of myths out there about how they operate. Number one, they all operate off of wind only. You could technically power up a wind turbine using grid power and rotate the blades in a circular manner. However, that would be, I don't know for what purpose. I have no idea. But all you need is some wind. There's anemometry on the tops of the wind turbine that tells the wind speed and the wind direction. And so the wind turbine will automatically turn into the wind, and then it will pitch the blades. Well, some of them are already pitched, but most of them will pitch the blades to catch the wind when it rises about 3 meters or 3.5 meters in speed, and then it'll start to rotate, and at a certain time it'll cut in and start producing power. And most of them have a cutout range when the wind exceeds, I want to say it's 22 meters per second or something like that, which is about 80 kilometers per hour. So the blades will automatically pitch out or dump the entire load and then slow right down and just pinwheel in the high winds. So they have a lot of safeties built into them. The tip speed on the blades themselves is about the same regardless of the size of the wind turbine. If it's a 70 meter rotor diameter or a 90 meter rotor diameter, it doesn't matter. The RPM of the blade, of the hub, will be different for that size, but the tip speed of the blade itself will be very, very close to any of the others. So if you've got a very small wind turbine with a 10 meter rotor diameter, it'll spin quite fast, and the very large ones will spin quite slowly. And for example, a 70 meter rotor diameter spins at about 20 RPM maximum. Now, when it reaches that maximum and the wind gets stronger, it will just pitch the blade and dump some of the load off of those blades to maintain that 20 RPM. So it's based on torque and rotational speed for your generator. And they all have different types of controls, but they work on the same principles. If I come down to a more useful aspect from our operations in VHF world, where we have my repeater sites, I have solar panels out on our repeaters, and typically we run about 500 watts of solar and a bank of half a dozen batteries. And on one of our sites, we didn't know the power was out for a week, and it managed to run the repeater just fine. But if it was in the winter with frost and cloud and no wind and whatnot to clear the solar panels, we probably would have discovered it was out of power in about 2 days, 3 days. Some of our sites have commercial power, and some are strictly emergency backup power off the solar battery. And we've got one small wind turbine that doesn't really work. It needs to be a better system. So we do run VHF repeaters and various things off of our emergency power, and try and do the best we can with that. I don't know where else you might want me to go. I'm keeping an eye on the clock here, Colin. It's 22 minutes. Go ahead.
Hang on, Ralph. Let me get over to you. Exactly, we don't need that.
Another, I think something that we might all be interested in too is the Canadian licensing structure is very different than, by the way, I'm licensed in Canada, meet VE4PUX, reciprocal license. I'm still on QRZ. Anyway, the licensing structure is very different in Canada than it is the U.S. As are the requirements are somewhat different. The privileges between the two different licenses, as well as the frequency allocation privileges and things. I think we'd all be interested in hearing all about the licensing structure and the requirements and the privileges and all that.
Okay, that's a great question, really, because they are very different. In Canada, we have several different levels of licensing, but basically it comes down to the two critical components. You've got basic, which is if you write your exam and you score less than 80%, you are considered basic, and that gives you VHF privileges. If you get 80% or better, it gives you full privileges on all bands, and that's it. Basically, those are your two qualifications. Then you have your CW endorsement, which you can add, and then you have an advanced ticket. Now, in order to sponsor a repeater, or in order to effectuate repairs or put another person's station into operation, you're supposed to have an advanced. So there's really 3 different certificates you can get. You've got your basic with honors, which means you scored over 80%. And then you've got your advanced, which is a separate certificate. To become a volunteer examiner, you have to have your advanced as well as your CW certification. And I do have my advanced, and I'd hate to say that I could read any CW at this time because I haven't used it in so long. But when I did learn my CW, I learned it at 17 words per minute. I found it a nice, comfortable speed to hear the letters rather than listen to the dits and the daws. And if anybody's working on their CW, I really recommend getting a program and learning it at a high speed, somewhere around 15 to 20 words per minute. And it is so much easier. I tried to learn it at 5 words per minute. If somebody's transmitting at 5 words per minute, in all honesty, I have more difficulty copying it than I do at 15 words per minute. So get used to hearing the sounds of letters and words coming through rather than the dits and the daws. But that's kind of the structure. So if you get less than 80%, you can have full privileges on VHF doing what you want and UHF. If you get 80% or better, you're allowed full permissions on all bands, all frequencies. So you don't have segregation on a band like 40 meters. You've got full access to the entire band. And then the only other qualification is your advanced and CW certification. Anything else?
So Mel, I've got a question. There used to be a guy, and I can't think of his name now or his call sign, but he would sit and bait the U.S. amateur radio operators. And let's see, who was our old Hollandale? Was it Hollinsworth? He would just put him down and knock him all over the place. Anyway, it was really flagrant what he was doing. So I think you have, what is it, the RAC up there, and do you have an equivalent to the FCC, and how often do they come down on people, and do you have equivalent to what we call observing stations, which we have here, that kind of listen for people that are really messing up?
That's a good question. Yes, we do have RAC, which is Radio Amateurs of Canada, that fight for the rights of the frequency spectrum for amateur radio operators. I'm not sure just how much fighting they do for us, but we also have a magazine that is rather thin compared to the QRZ. As far as the monitoring of what's going on in the band, we do have observers on the radios. I've never heard of anybody coming unhinged on anybody else in Canada. We all pay attention to people that are being flagrant and misusing the radio. And typically we don't have too much problem. We're in a large farming community here, and you'll find that farmers will purchase commercial VHF radios and figure out how to program them or whatever, and they'll end up on an amateur band, VHF band, and frequency. And I've been traveling sometimes, and I'll hear a couple of guys that are just talking to each other with no call signs or anything, so I'll identify myself. And it goes really quiet real quick. And I think they respect the aspect that, number one, the bands are not plugged up here. And if they know they're running illegally, they don't want any problems. So you get air silence and that's it. If there's anybody that's abusing the privilege of the radios and causing a nuisance, there are things that people will track them down. They will turn them in. I haven't heard of any significant enforcements in the past 20 years or anything like that. Even when I was not licensed, the amateur radio operators that found out I was operating without a license, they just came to me and says, we'd really recommend that you take the course and get your license. And I said, yeah, okay. And I was on shift work, and they put on a course, and I could make it to about 40% of their classes because I was on shift work. They knew I was continuing to run. They didn't call enforcement because they knew I wasn't breaking any real significant issues other than not being licensed. And they were pretty kind about it. Whereas if they wanted to be ignorant, they could have had the radio seized and stuff like that, and they could have shut me down. But again, it comes down to, is a person are they out of control on the airwaves? And are they causing a problem? And most people here don't get too concerned if you operate with proper protocol and with respect. Anything else?
Colin just really wants to bug you tonight.
Well, I'm looking at a little sign up there that says we're running out of time. But anyway, Call signs up there, VE, VA. What else is there as far as call signs?
Okay. In Alberta or in Canada, it's all Victor Alpha and Victor Echo. Victor Alpha came after Victor Echo, and it starts in the east and it goes Victor Echo 0, and then as you work your way west, it climbs in numbers. British Columbia is Victor Echo 7, so British Columbia is 7, Alberta is 6, Saskatchewan is 5, Manitoba is 4, Ontario is 3, and Quebec is 2. So it's either a Victor Alpha or a Victor Echo, and it goes 0, 1, 2, 3 on through.
So, Mel, that raises two more questions. For a long time here in the United States, if you moved from one of our areas, you had to get a new call sign. They don't do that anymore because I guess it would be just chaotic to do that, or the FCC doesn't want to deal with it. So if you are a VE6 and you move to British Columbia, that's one question. Do you have to get a new call sign? And the other thing is down here we have HRO, ham radio outlet. We have also DX engineering. Do you have outlets like that up there in Canada where most Canadian ham radio operators go to buy their equipment?
First of all, it is recommended that we get a new call sign if we move to a different province. There are a couple of outlets that are closely associated with HRO for purchasing equipment, and with the exchange on the dollar right now, the US dollar being worth about 35% more than the Canadian dollar, it hurts to buy in the US, but it's just as expensive in Canada. But when the dollar is more on par, it's usually far more economical to buy through the US and have it shipped to a US border site that has mail, and then people pick it up at that border cross.
Got that mic back there?
Are we running out of time? We still go. Mel, appreciate your talking to us today. I just had a real quick question about wind turbines, and I'll try to figure out how to tie it into radios. But the hydraulics on your wind turbines is an issue down here. You know, if it gets minus 20 degrees Fahrenheit, they can't spin. And in Texas, you know, when they had that big mess down there, that was kind of an issue. So how do you deal? Because you're dealing with cool temperatures up there. How do you deal with the hydraulics, or do you have different way to do it?
There's only a couple of manufacturers of wind turbines that actually use hydraulics to pitch the blades. Vestas being one of the bigger ones, and more broadly known, and they have a lot of oil and a lot of hydraulic equipment up tower. You get into some of the other models, they have no hydraulics at all. It's all electrical pitch and electrical control. So yeah, the spectrum of how each turbine operates can be very different. Most brands of wind turbines have gearboxes also, and they get stiff in real cold weather, but there are heaters on the gearboxes to keep the oil at least thin enough to rotate. And once they start to rotate, they generate plenty of heat. So that being said, yeah, it depends on the brand. Hydraulics can be an issue, but again, you can get hydraulic oils that work fairly efficiently in the cold weather.
Talking about the wind farm, what about the grid? You mentioned the grid. What's the frequency and the voltage on the grid, and then in the ordinary house and at the wind turbine, and the power level of the different wind farms?
Okay, good question. Most of the grid operations in Alberta that I'm aware of are 138,000 volts. Most of the wind turbines produce power at 600 volts or some variant of near that. And it goes to the local substation where it's taken from 600 volts right on up to 138,000 or 13,800. So it depends on where you're located and how near the major distribution lines you are, and so forth. So it could be either 13,800 or 138,000 is very common for our grid operations. And the output of these wind farms is variable. The first wind farm I bought, I was a project manager on. It was only 30 megawatts. So it was 20 1.5 megawatt turbines. The next one was 47 1.5 megawatt. And then the next one was 1.7 megawatt, and there was 20 of those. And then the next wind farm I built was 2.2, and the next one was 5 megawatt wind farm. You know, each turbine was 5 megawatts. So it spreads all over the place. I built mainly GE wind turbines. I managed Vestas as well as Enercon machines, and the similarities amongst the three is almost nil. Enercon is completely electrical control. They have no hydraulics. They have no gearbox. They use inverters and converters. You get GE machines. They have a gearbox, but they have no hydraulics. And you get a Vestas machine. They've got gearboxes and hydraulics. So the variability in the design and the operation of the machines are so different.
All right. Well, Mel, thank you for your time this evening. We greatly appreciate it. Can we get a round for him, folks?
Thanks very much for having me.
Thank you very much again. We appreciate you.
Okay, we'll see you. Have a good meeting.
Thank you.
I had a follow-up to what happened in Texas. They had the option to purchase heaters with their wind generators. And so they wanted to save money. They says it doesn't get that cold down here in Texas. So they didn't need the more expensive option of the heater. They chose not to. Whereas up here in Iowa, all of ours have heaters. Yep.
All right. So we'll go ahead and move on to club business. Colin, we'll start with you with the treasury report, please.
Oh. Yeah. Yep. Okay. In our savings account, we have $2,389. In our main account, we have $4,758. In Springbrook, we have $843. Based on what I've received tonight and what I received in the mail the last couple of weeks, I probably got about 7 more deposits to make of dues. Against this, I'll write a check of $5 for our 504 state fee. And let's see, and I've written a check of $75 to the post office to keep our post office box going for another 6 months.
Thank you, sir. All right. Then we had a bit of a discussion on field day. Dave Trost is our committee chair this year, and he's going to be reaching out to the entire club via email, hopefully within the next week. And he's going to be just kind of looking for who's interested in what people are willing to do. We really hope that even if you say, I can't make the commitment, that's fine. We get that. Please still try to respond to that email so that we know that we've got the best email address for you. On the 16th and 17th of August, it's a Friday and Saturday. Colin was able to work with the Field of Dreams Management, and they would be excited to have us out again for a special event station. So we are planning that. He's also going to work with someone on creating a QSL card for us. Why did everything shift on me? I would also, of course, encourage everybody to please sign in on the tablet, or if you signed in on the piece of paper, Joe already transferred those over for us. Let's see here. Robert, come here real quick. Because you said you wanted to share some stuff with the club, and I'm down with it, so bring her on up. We're not done with club business.
You gonna stand next to me? You can't hold it. Yeah, let's do it.
There you go. With what you got going.
All right, so the other day I was just kind of thinking about the club. I got a call from a guy that I met last year. I went down to Cedar Rapids to their field day, and I met some guys down there from Collins Aerospace, and then I got a call from one of the guys at Collins, asked me if I would come down again this year and operate with them, and I said, yeah, I'll do that. I'll come down early in the day, operate with you guys, and in the afternoon I'll leave and then come back up to Dubuque to operate at Dubuque's field day. But doing that, I kind of thought about, kind of Dubuque and whatnot, and some of the things that we're doing, and what can we do to promote the club and everything like that. And I thought about, we should get some T-shirts or something for field day that kind of have like our club name on there and kind of what we do, just to kind of advertise who we are and what we're doing. And then I thought, what could I do for just like kind of a mock-up T-shirt? And then it just kind of popped into my head. I don't know if I was looking for like something, and I seen a coffee mug. So I'm like, coffee net. So then I made up just a mock T-shirt. I got 2 of them ordered. I wanted to see what they were like, just to kind of see what the quality was and stuff like that. I gave one to Gary tonight. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it. He was having a bloody nose. But I came up with this one here, where it's coffee net. And of course, it's got the coffee mug and Gary. And I'll pass it around if people want to look at it. This is just a shirt for me to check the quality and just kind of see how they look and stuff like that. Just kind of get an idea. First time we ever ordered a T-shirt. I ordered it off of Printify. But anyway, I thought it would just be a great way to kind of maybe get the conversation started about amateur radio. The weird thing is recently I was at a church. What do they call those things? A mass. I was at church. I don't remember. They call it different everywhere you go. But anyway, I was at church and they were talking about the 4 E's, which was evangelize, establish, equip, and encourage. And I thought, what a great way to start kind of evangelizing the Amateur Radio Club by wearing a T-shirt that's a conversation starter, so people start talking about amateur radio and kind of what you do. It's kind of a difficult thing sometimes, I think, to just randomly start talking to people about amateur radio. But if you have something that they can see, like a T-shirt or a hat or whatever, then they can start asking questions and you can kind of talk about it and then all the cool things that you can do and whatnot. So, yeah, go ahead.
Hey, Robert, if we had these for field day, I assume we would individually sign up for them. How much would they cost? And, do you get a break at 10 or 20 or 30?
I can find that information out, but the 2 shirts that I bought shipped to my house were $31 and some odd change. It's about $16 a shirt, which isn't too bad. So I mean, it's under $20. So if anybody wants one, I can take orders and order them. And then if there's any money left over, we can donate to the club or disperse it back to people or whatever. But I think it'd be a great idea just to have a T-shirt to wear around and people can ask you questions about it. And then when we do have the field day, hopefully we can somehow advertise it to get people to come and check it out and stuff like that. So that was the one thing I had. The other thing I had is I've taken over managing the Sunday Night Nets, helping Lauren out. We got Lauren back on the air. He had some issues with his power supply. It's a variable power supply with variable voltage and amperage, and somehow maybe the grandkids were over, turned the knobs, and they were 8.5 volts, and the amperage just way down. So I got it back up 13.8 and turned the amperage up to correct level. So he's back on the air, but we were always doing the weekly nets, and then it was suggested to me by Ed that we do a monthly net. And I kind of like that idea, but I also like to kind of get some people that are new to the club, which I don't see very many new faces here, to also do nets. So I'm throwing that invitation out there that if somebody wants to do the net, we would like new people to do it, only because we want everybody to just kind of get used to doing it and whatnot. And if you don't want to do it for a full month, that's fine. We can just kind of set it up for you, do some weeks. There's been a few times, well, at least once so far that KA9 MVP, Lauren, had asked me to do the net for him once. So, I mean, there's plenty of opportunity for new users to do it. And the one thing is I wouldn't be worried about making mistakes. I mean, everybody that's ever done the net has made mistakes while doing the net, including myself. So, don't worry about anything like that. But I think the easy thing would be for a month long, because this way hey, I got the month of March or I got the month of June, and then people are dedicated more to doing that versus, oh, do I do it this week or not? Oh, well. And then just kind of do whatever. And then if there's anybody that comes across the week where they're like, I really like to hang out with my family. I haven't seen it in a long time, so I'm not going to be able to do the net. They can call me up or they can call Lauren up, and we'll take over the net that night for them. So that's all I got. Go ahead.
So, I put together a kind of a labor.
What happened?
I can hear him pretty well.
Okay. Okay.
So I put together kind of an updated list of call signs
Right.
for the Sunday evening net.
Yep.
I noticed that the other day somebody mentioned one that was on there or something. So are you upgrading that list as it goes?
I don't have. I need to talk to you tonight and see if you got any more names to add to that list. And I can send you a copy of the one that I got now. That was basically the one you gave me. And the only thing I did to it was I added the ability that if you put an X or whatever character by the person's name, it'll tally them up. So at the bottom, it gives you a tally of how many people checked in and whatnot. But I can send that to you, and then you can take a look at it. And if there's any additional names to be added, we can add them. So.
Yeah, there was somebody's Sunday on the net, and they weren't on the list.
Oh. Delbert.
Oh,
Yes, Delbert wasn't on the list.
okay,
So-
so you'll get that on?
Yeah,
Okay.
yep. So, if there's any other names, please let me know.
It's embarrassing when we call a silent key on the net.
Did we call a silent key?
We have in the past.
Yeah. Well, do we have any silent keys currently on that list?
Not on there now.
Okay, good. So, yeah. Yeah. So, that's all I got. Thank you.
Well, Robert, we appreciate you taking that over as the manager.
Yeah.
All right, so one other kind of important piece to cover here. I know there's quite a few vets out here. Is everybody familiar with the term PAO? Public Affairs Officer. So we're looking for someone that'd be willing to step up in that kind of a role for the club. We would ask that you coordinate with local media outlets, so radio, Telegraph Herald, and just kind of when we're having events, get that word out there sooner than, say, 2 weeks in advance. Or if we're doing something out at the Field of Dreams, have them come out, do an article on us. When we do field day, maybe they want to hit ours, maybe they want to go up to Platteville, the tri-state area, but give them something to kind of work on. This is completely voluntary, of course. We would hope that someone would step up, though, so if you are interested, please let either myself, Colin, Dan, Shireman, one of us know, and we'll definitely go ahead and start working on that. With that in mind, is there anyone willing right now? No? Yes, Colin. Was that a volunteer?
No, I suggest Dan.
Tyndall.
When I did it for Telegraph Herald, it really didn't much from it, so
I don't know.
That's kind of why I was hoping we could also branch out to like the radio stations, maybe even KCRG, someone like that, just to kind of see how we can get amateur radio and what we do for the community out more in the public's eye, because they think we're all a bunch of guys wearing tinfoil hats, and it's true for about half of us, but that's okay. Pat, you know you're one too. Something you'll think about, Dan? Possibly? Get back to us?
Yeah, I could think about it. I think more ad hoc. In other words, we got some events coming up, I could do it and then back out and then something else coming up down the road.
Oh yeah, most definitely. It does not have to be anything full time. Yeah, it's just.
Listed, so I'm not in the office or okay.
That's fine. That's fine. NCO then. PANCO. We'll take that. All right. I think that's all that I had. Yes, Dan. Yes. Colin, give me 2 seconds before, unless it's bylaws related. Bylaws related? No? Okay. So, we did have, last month we had talked about adding a amendment to the bylaws, the club bylaws, defining the role of a club trustee. Colin was able to get that put together and added to the bylaws. The board did sign off on those again tonight, so they are updated. If anyone would like a copy, Kelly's going to not like me for this because he's not here, but reach out to our secretary, Kelly Allen. He could provide them for you. Of course, I could, Colin could, Shireman could, any board member can. They are on our club's what is it, Joe? G Drive, thank you. Yes. So if anyone wants one, just let us know. We'll be glad to get it to you. Colin.
Well, so we'll have to put a new one up there.
I already posted it. The one that you emailed us, I posted.
So we're going to do special event station. The Field of Dreams, we did it 5 years ago or something. That was really a blast out there. And so we're ready to go. Now, we have an opportunity to do something special, and that's go down to the Matthias Ham House. You get the significance of that? Ham House? Ham radio? Yeah. Okay. So, they have a big ice cream day, and a lot of people, so there'll be lots of public relations there on the 4th of July. But as we discussed in the board, it seemed like most of us are going to be doing things with our own families. So is there anybody that would like to go down on the 4th of July and operate? Okay, you're going to be doing okay, so we can find another day. They'll still give us access to it, and we can take pictures and get our pictures in QST. Okay? We'll find another day. Did we come up?
I think the date that we were thinking of would be the 6th or 7th, that Saturday or Sunday following the 4th of July, depending on when the Dubuque Air and Water Show is going to be this year.
Yeah. Okay. Just offer opportunities for people to get on the air and operate.
And Colin, correct me if I'm wrong, but if we're running a special event station and we have a control operator with an extra license, we're good to go just like field day, correct?
Right. And we put these into QST so that they show up there as people can look into QST and they see, oh yeah, out there in Iowa, there's a special event station on this date. It's Field of Dreams. Yeah, I want to be part of that. And so the sooner we can make a decision about what we're going to do on Matthias Ham House, the better too, because you have to give them several months in advance to get that into the magazine.
Thank you, sir. Was there anything else for tonight? Yes, sir.
The Ham House. How come they called it Ham?
Matthias Ham House.
Matthias' last name.
That's his last name. Huh?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't do that.
Dan just admitted to being asleep at the wheel here, so we're good to go. All right. Anybody else with anything tonight? Yep, so just a reminder, if you hadn't signed in on the paper or the tablet, please do so. Joe already transferred all the paper sign-ins to the tablet.
Where is the tablet?
On the table, right next to, right behind Robert.
If you were in the board meeting, you were checked in. Oh, I can check in myself.
For always. Always. We are always welcome to anybody that wants to join the club. Just have them reach out to Colin here, and we're good to go. Or Colin's in his hearing aid there. New membership, potentially.
Oh.
All right. Any other business for tonight? Yes, Ed. All right. Motion on the floor to adjourn. I see seconded a few times around. Anyone opposed? Nope. Awesome.
I just want to let you know that our club is politically correct. And to prove it, I want everybody to see this ugly picture. What is he from?